Hi, I'm Jen with Pensacola Mom Collective, and I'm introducing our next speaker, which is Amy Piedmont. And Amy is an attorney with the law firm of Litvak, Beasley, Wilson, and Ball here in Pensacola. She specializes in all aspects of estate planning, which includes wills, trusts, powers of attorney. Amy, thank you for being with us to talk about a very important topic and one that involves some very difficult conversations and decisions, and honestly, one to me personally that it can seem very overwhelming. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So can you just start us from like square one? What exactly is estate planning?
Okay, so estate planning involves a lot more. Typically, people think of a will, but it's much more comprehensive than that. It's not just about planning for when you're no longer here. It's also planning for when you may no longer be able to make decisions for yourself. That became very readily apparent in the world that we're living in right now, and COVID and ventilators, that there's multiple documents that go into your estate plan. So a lot of people think, oh, well, I don't need a will, I have a husband, whatever. But it involves not just a will, as you mentioned, durable powers of attorney. This is appointing someone that if you can't make a decision for yourself, they can handle your finances. It also involves a healthcare power of attorney. You can't make healthcare decisions for yourself. They can make decisions for you. And those documents are almost more important than your will, because if you don't have those documents, your loved ones have to go to the court and get appointed to be your guardian. They can't go into a hospital and tell a doctor how they want your healthcare decisions to be managed. And so in a time where they're already stressed because you're sick or you've been in an accident, they have to now go to the court in order to make decisions for you. So an estate plan involves more than just a will or a trust handling your assets when you're gone. It involves a lot of decisions while you may still be around, which is why it's important not only for young families, but also something to consider with your parents, because a lot of times you may be the one that has to make those decisions.
Wow. So it sounds like I don't have to be a wealthy person. I don't have to own my own home. I don't have to even own a car. I don't have to have really possessions to start thinking about estate planning.
That's correct.
Is that accurate?
That is correct. Especially, yes, because when you're talking about the durable power of attorney for property and healthcare, it doesn't matter how much you have. Everyone could get in a car accident or be in the hospital and need someone to make those decisions. It's not about the size of your estate, whether you would need a guardian or not. If you can't make a decision for yourself, you either need a power of attorney or they'll need to go to court to become your guardian. The second thing is, if you are a parent to young children, regardless of how much property you have, if you want to control who gets appointed guardian of your children should something happen to you, that's addressed in your estate planning documents. And, if you come from a divorce situation or when one parent's not involved in the family anymore and you really want to make sure who is going to be the person that is appointed by the court, the court relies heavily on what you put in your will as to who would be guardian.
Wow. So I know when my husband and I did our documents early on in our marriage, and he's in the military. And so we had to do that pretty quick because of deployments and things like that. And so, but I think the hardest conversation for us to have was, who does care for my children? And that's an overwhelming, I think, decision for a lot of parents. And whether you're married or you're a single parent, who is going to step in and take care of your children in your absence that is a big decision. And I think it could. I mean, I would have wanted to put that decision off for as long as possible, but I didn't have that luxury. And so I think that might be a factor for some people in not wanting to start. These are difficult conversations. Nobody wants to talk about death or what's going to happen to my kids if something happens to me. But what is your advice on what's the first step? Like, how do you walk people through this really hard topic?
Well, the first thing I say is, once you make the plan, chances are nothing will happen to you. Murphy's Law, right? You've actually taken that step. it is something that it's difficult to think about. But I think the even scarier thing to think about is not having a say-so in that. That something, God forbid, has happened to you, and your kids are now before the court, and they get to decide without your input where your children should go. And, I've seen it a lot of times, even people that both mom and dad were involved in their life. And then you have mom and dad's family fighting over who gets the kids. And that's the last thing you would want if something were to happen to you. So although it's a hard thing to sit back and think about, we do come in, you walk in, you can appoint one person that takes care of them emotionally that they live with, and another person that takes care of them financially. Not everyone, some people may be able to serve different roles. That you may have one person that that they're going to be the best mom dad figure, but someone else may be better with the finances, and you have that option. So it's not that you have to put everything on one person, but it is, although it can be daunting to think about, there is a certain comfort in you had the last say in who would take care of your kids.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think too, it gets overwhelming because like I said, nobody wants to talk about this, right? You're starting out your life, your new baby, and you don't want to think about those terrible topics. But I do know that as a new mom, I think we can all be a little bit anxious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we think about those things about like, okay, what if something happens? What if something happens to my spouse or to the child's other parent, whatever the situation may be? And so I know that these are really important conversations and things to think about. And what is the first step? Like, how does someone find an attorney? How do they go about like getting started in this process?
So, you can search for an estate planning attorney. Now, I do caution people. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, I can just draw up a will. You want to make sure it's someone, myself, I have a master's in estate planning on top of my law degree. There's a lot of attorneys in the area that have a master's in tax. So you want to talk to someone that really specializes in estate planning, because there are a lot of facets to it. If you do have a larger estate, there are certain things that can be done. But like I said, with, another issue with minors, if something were to happen to you and you don't have a will that has certain provisions in it, when you pass, all your property is basically held by the court. The guardian has to make all these accountings, constantly reporting whenever they need money to take care of the kids. And then when the children turn 18, they get everything outright, which is a scary thought for a lot of people because there's not a lot of 18-year-olds that are confident. So that's where you need someone that knows all of these aspects to estate planning. So when you search, make sure you're searching for an estate planning attorney, and then kind of, don't be afraid to ask them questions. How many estate plans do they do? What kind of estates do they handle? There's certain ones that specialize in large estates, certain ones that specialize in family issues, but there's plenty of good estate planning attorneys out there.
For sure. And how do you typically, like with your clients, do you sit down and kind of have like an informational kind of get to know you meeting, and then the client can decide whether like you're the right fit for me in my situation or not?
So our firm does an initial no-cost consultation. We go through a questionnaire that gives us some background about your family situation, your financial situation, and what your goals are, who you want to provide for, what your concerns are, and then we make some recommendations. Most estate planning attorneys, it's a flat fee. It's not like you hear about attorneys charging by the hour, and we quote you a fee and you decide if it's something that you're ready to proceed with. But for the most part, estate planning attorneys will do that initial consultation for free.
Great. Wonderful. That's really helpful. What is your one piece of advice for new moms, new families, people who are adopting, fostering? What is your one piece of advice from what you've seen in your legal career?
I was going to say I have a lot of advice, but it more comes from my mom's side than my legal career. I think it's to start having the conversation. Take that step to plan. There is so much as a parent that you cannot control, and you realize that very early on. And this is something you can. This is an easy thing that you can do, that you may go get these documents drafted and not think about it for another 10 years, but you have something in place that if the unthinkable happened, you at least planned for your family and you can have that peace of mind.
Yeah. And that's what we do as parents, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
that's great. Well, Amy, if you wouldn't mind dropping your contact info in the comments below,
Okay.
and we can, if anyone wants to reach out to you directly to kind of get started with the estate planning process, they can do that and be able to get in touch with you. And we
Okay.
really appreciate you walking us through this big and important topic, and one that can seem very overwhelming for a lot of people. So thank you very much for being
Well,
with
thank
us.
you for having me. Okay, I'm putting it now.